against the backdrop of Juneteenth and in the midst of Pride Month celebrations. I'm so delighted to be here with this incredible panel in, I guess, the order from my right. We have Dr. Glenda Aleman from the beautiful Sunshine State of Florida. Dr. Darryl Glover from the Tar Heel, beautiful state of North Carolina. Mr. Ian Bell, who is the President of Global Business and Innovation at Alcon, and Nishant Maller, who is one of our marketing leaders in Alcon Surgical. So I guess in 10 seconds or so, can you introduce yourselves by sharing maybe one superpower that you have? So tell this lovely audience a unique strength that you have that is not in your title, something that's beyond your title. And maybe Nishant, we'll start with
So Nishant Maller, I work in social marketing at Alcon. I've been there 12 years. So my superpower would be I can sleep on a plane. I fall asleep, I wake up with food, fall back asleep, and wake up with front landing. I grew up in India, so the short flight back and forth gave me some practice.
Ian Bell, I'm President of Innovation. I could be asleep 30 seconds from now, so I'm really good. Seriously, that's my
My superpower is I don't know how to stop talking.
And I guess I have the stage, so might as well talk about what I'm passionate about, which is my superpower is myopia. Empowerment is my one myopia word.
It just dawned on me as I'm looking at the four of you. Actually, I was going to say that this panel is truly multicultural and multinational. The five of us actually represent 5 continents. So, so I guess ladies first. So you'll get the first question. I was amazed when I talked to you for the first time on the phone the other day and heard your story and how you came to this country with pregnant and with very little money. And look at where you are today and the experiences that you've had. So how are you today defining diversity and inclusivity in the context of leadership in optometry?
So I think you said it very well, and I think in the context of leadership in optometry, we are the embodiment, right, of what leadership should look like. So when we are on these stages, so first of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you, Alcon and Owl, for inviting me. And I love being here with a diverse group. And as leaders in the industry, we have a duty. We have the power, right? That we can open doors and lead the ways for other people that look like us. So I love this panel because we are truly, truly diverse. And being here, this is what it should look in this room. And I know we're short on time. Otherwise, I would say everybody come forward because we have a seats.
So somebody once told me life is not just about finding yourself, but it's about creating the best version of yourself. And you've done that. So tell us a little bit in 30 seconds, the different roles and how you evolved and how you created the Glenda that we all love and know today.
Thank you. So it's been a very long journey. And I came here, like you said, 6 months pregnant, with very little money, $30 in my pocket. And it's thankfully to all the amazing women and men that have opened the doors for me and created opportunities that I'm sitting here with you today. I was talking to somebody today and I was saying Maria Sampalis, was the first person that gave me an opportunity to be in a webinar, and that opened so many doors for me. So I really appreciate, and I'm very humble being here because I realized that being here is a big responsibility, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And I don't take it lightly being here because I know that, hopefully one person here tonight, something I say or something I do can change, their life. And that's why I love being part of events like this.
Thank you. So Darryl, what challenges have you faced and observed regarding diversity and inclusivity in your career?
So, that's a hell of a question.
Because you said you can't stop talking.
Yeah, I want to take it back. I was a technician, and I worked with a company known as Eyecare Associates, and we were acquired by my doctor. And at that time, I was teching for a black doctor. So I didn't know that I was actually living in a bubble where I could see someone that looks like me, that's a leader, that's changing the game, that's climbing the ladder, and now the chief marketing officer of my eye doctor. I didn't know at that time that wasn't reality. It was when I went to school and I looked around, and then when I went to conferences and I looked around, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. Even in this room today, how many black people do you see in here? That's a problem. That's a major problem. Imagine going somewhere and not seeing anyone that looks like you. No one that understands your culture. No one that understands your vibe. It's scary. It's difficult. How do you navigate the landscape in a workspace? How do you navigate the space in the school setting? It's very difficult. So, what kind of challenges have I experienced over this time with diversity and inclusion and all the other jazz? It's a hustle every day, because to this point, there's less than 2% of optometrists that are practicing that are black. Less than 1% that are men. There are less than 4% of black optometry students in school right now. We gotta do better. But it is events like this that help to take it to the next level. It's companies like Alcon that invest in leaders like Chandra Nichols that create diverse leadership opportunities and KOLs for people of various backgrounds. You got to partner with the right companies to make this magic happen. But as a black man in Eyecare, it is difficult. But the one thing that keeps me going is that I love Eyecare, and I love to help patients live their best lives.
Well said. I must admit, I was Googling you a little bit, and I came across Defocus Media.
Okay.
And I watched a couple of the videos on the podcast, and I
I talk too much, right?
I love the playfulness, the connection, the flow. It was very fun. But I'd love to hear a little more about what led you to do this. How did that platform start, and how are you using it today?
Yeah, fantastic question. And it all started with Dr. Jennifer Lyerly and myself. Jennifer Lyerly is an optometrist, a woman based out of Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And when we graduated from optometry school back in 2011, we saw that optometry was in a scary place. Everyone on the blogs were just talking about how bad optometry was, how there was no future of it. And her and I loved the profession. So we said, you know what, we want to create a platform that creates authentic dialogue from diverse perspectives. Black male, white female. And from there, we just kind of blew up. We started inviting people that looked like us to give them a platform, like Glenda, that may not have been able to get platforms and other different other opportunities. And it just kind of blew up from there. And we talked about everything from the latest trends to technology, legislation, whatever eye care topics that are out there, we basically have a conversation about it. But we always make sure that we emphasize that we always bring a diverse background to that setting to have that conversation.
Nice. And that inspired you in a way, Glenda, when you were working on Leo.
Yes. So they were a big inspiration for us. So like you said, your challenge. I had that feeling, so luckily for me, I met wonderful people that have opened doors for me. But it was actually a non-optometry event. I was at a summit for Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses alumni. And when I was there, I felt that. I was there and I didn't see any Latinos. And the Black community was being well represented there. And that's really what it made me think of, Black Eyecare's perspective, and I reached out to my friend Diana Canto, who happened to be there when I was texting her. I'm like, dude, I'm here at this meeting. I feel like there's no Latinos here. We gotta do something. And I was like, she's like, Glenda, I'm right here. We met there and we're like, we gotta do something about this. And that's why being a leader, if it isn't there, we're the ones that can make that change for others. So we sat down, we talked together, and she actually was talking to the other founder of Leo, and she was like, we're actually trying to establish this organization, would you like to be part of it? And that's how Latinos and optometry got started, because we have a very similar problem like Darryl, where there's not enough Latinos optometrists practicing, and that is an underrepresentation of the Latino community. So the Latino community in the US is about 19%, and we have less than 6% of optometrists practicing. So it's a huge opportunity, and we need more events like this, more organizations like this. Thank you, Alcon, for your support. And I think I'm going over my time. One thing, when we sit here, right, and we talk about companies doing their part, I really admire Alcon, because we had an event last night, and I'm not saying here because they pay for dinner. They pay for the event. But I was really thinking about what I was going to say today, and then I looked around the room, and Alcon truly, walks the walk. They're not just sitting here and say, we support diversity, but in the room was fully diverse. And you see it from their leadership team all the way down. I mean, when you go to the Alcon Institute for Educational Events, the panel, their speakers, it is the most diverse group of speakers that they have. And when you're bringing your leaders, and really, because that's what diversity and inclusion is, right? Because we talk about diversity, but inclusion is how do we make a space and listen to people with different backgrounds. And you guys are there, like I'm talking to the president of Alcon, and he's listening to what I have to say, right? A little Latina, mom of 5 from Honduras. I would never think I had the opportunity. So yeah, so Alcon is great, and that's what diversity and inclusion should look like.
You've had a very remarkable career across multiple therapeutic areas, across the world, different geographies, drugs and devices. In your experience, how does diversity in leadership benefit our eye care industry and our patients?
Well, I head up the innovation group at Alcon, and that's really the ideas business. It's how do we have those ideas for what we need to develop for the future to help serve the populations and help people to see brilliantly, and then how do we bring them to life. The more diverse a group we have, the more diverse our thinking is, and the better that our thinking is, the better the products that we create are. And so it's really important to us to think about that, and as we develop our products, we challenge our teams as well to think about how they will serve diverse populations. On our surgical side, we used to make equipment with handpieces of one size. As more and more ophthalmologists around the world are females with smaller hands, turns out they weren't a great fit. And so we began to adapt some of those technologies. Small changes, but important changes. And I think encouraging a diverse population, but then, just like Glenda said, really importantly, valuing what listening and taking the time is the key, because it's one thing to have corporate goals to get to certain levels. It's another thing to value the diversity that you have and make sure that voice is heard. And there's a lot we do, and there's even more that we can do to make sure that is seen and valued. And that can be as simple as if you looked at our marketing materials 10 years ago, most of the people picturing photos looked a lot like me. And that doesn't look like me. Yeah, 10 years ago, maybe.
The young version.
Yeah, younger version, exactly. But simple things like that help serve the population. So as you're showing, educating your patients about the therapists we have, people who look like them. And that's little things like that are so important, that show the value you put on those things, creates an opportunity for that voice to be heard. And we're in the people business. Of course we're a company with shareholders and they have financial expectations, but it's really about getting the very best people. So we want the very best people regardless of where they have come from. And part of that is bringing that diversity to the organisation that makes us richer.
So is Alcon's superpower diversity, is that what you're telling me?
I would say that on that journey, we're all being very kind. Do not think for a moment that we're perfect. We are battling every day to become more and more diverse. You know, we track what we do, you know, what gets measured gets done in many ways, and we make those comparisons to the available pools of populations in certain areas, and there is more diversity available in some of the areas, in R&D and IT, than there are in some of the areas that we operate in. We track those populations to see how we're doing versus the pool of candidates that we are competing for. Now you can argue that if we're successful in that, and we're very successful in some areas but not in others, that would make us average. And we aim to be a bit better than average, but we're on that journey exactly as you described.
That's definitely a journey. So I'll ask you this, because we had an interesting conversation this morning about how many companies are pulling away from DEI. And honestly, I've struggled with that a little bit myself. I mean, they're pulling away from spending a ton of money on an executive who's just a DEI officer or something. So does that make sense? And shouldn't DEI be part and parcel of an HR function, and certainly something that all of us as leaders are thinking about and living by? You know what I'm saying? So why the backlash, and what's lost in the process in your opinion?
The backlash is
and there's
foolish.
no right or wrong
I think the
answer.
backlash is foolish, as you imply, for all the reasons I just said. But you know, look, at Alcon we do have a D&I group within our HR group. Clearly the goal is you would not need that, because you've basically got someone there who's helping the organisation to evolve. The ultimate evolution is it's embedded in all of us, in the way that we think and the way that we think about our people and our business. And I think it's been an incredibly helpful catalyst to make sure that we're making the progress we need to on this journey, that we have the employee resource groups, as Carla referenced, that help and support those populations to be as great as they can be for the company. And that's actually what their remit is. You know, it's not just a support group to help each other. It's an important twist that it's to help them to help each other, to help the company be successful. And you know, that's an important twist in the remit that really aligns to what the company's vision and strategy is of helping people see brilliantly.
Me personally, I also want to add a little more to that. I think when you can find an organization that reflects diversity from the top, then naturally it's a part of their DNA. I'll give you an example. I worked for my eye doctor. That's the customer service Newsweek 2024. But the organization that I represent, we were founded back in 2001 by Sue Downs, a woman, co-founder. To this day, she's still the CEO of our organization. We have Dr. Artis Beatty, Black Chief Medical Officer, doing amazing things and changing the game. We have Eli, who's our Chief Marketing Officer, which is a Hispanic gentleman. And I really love Eli because when you think about what the future of the population is going to look like in the United States, it's going to be majority what? Hispanic patients. So we have someone in that marketing seat, in that branding seat, that's going to be able to communicate with all walks of life that are out there, especially that main demographic that's going to sit in front of us. You look at our Chief Information Officer, it's an Asian gentleman. You look at our Chief Operations Officer, it's a white male. You look at our Chief People Officer, it's a seasoned Caucasian woman. So that diversity that I see up top, not only does it help us to outperform non-diverse teams, but it also helps me to look up top and say, damn, I could get there too. I see myself on that C-suite. I can make a change. I can make an impact. And I can bring others up there with us. I can have a voice. So I think that, you know, yeah, I see all this stuff in the news with the DEI and removing it all. But I think if a company really wants it, they'll hire from the top and work their way down.
Nishant, I've known you for a long time, but I didn't know your whole story and how you came out and why. I mean, if you can share a little bit about that story and why, of course, diversity is important to you as a gay man, but also as an ally.
why I'm getting okay. So I grew up, a little sass right there. I grew up in India, so I moved to the US in 2003, so 21 years ago. I had hair when I came here.
He was young and good looking. I
was young and good looking. Just call me out, geez. So it was, I know, right? I tried to hold on for so long, it didn't work. So when I moved here, I came here for undergrad, I came to the US. My goal was to fit in and just be like everyone else. And I realized that when I was going on job interviews, I would talk to the companies and they're like, oh yeah, we want to hire you for internship. I'm like, awesome, I need a visa. They're like, what? And so I'm like, clearly I'm not from here. And I think I'd taken the assimilation so far that I'd almost like totally changed who I was. So I started realizing I need to bring back a bit of my culture. And I was still figuring out who I was as a person. And so I came out in 2017. I was 30. And coming out is a process for a lot of us. It's not a one-time event, right? You don't do it and you're done. Every time you talk to somebody, they're like, how's your wife? Well, I don't have one because I'm gay. So it's just slow thing that happened over the course of time. And when we started Open, so I was the past president of Open. I now run the global organization for Open. When I was asked to join and create Open, I was like, I'll be in the back. I'll help create the organization, create the marketing, but I'm doing the back-end operations. You won't see me up front because my identity is not who I am. So I was sort of brainwashed in thinking that my being gay was not something I bring to work, right? It's not part of my personality. It's something separate. It's keep that at home. And 6 months later, we had Dallas Pride, and I was running around in the parade waving flags with the Alcon float. And so being Open sort of helped me come out a little bit. Had an awesome boss who just made it okay for me to be who I was. And coming out, I realized really lifted off that weight that was on me. I wasn't thinking about talking about my partner or using vague descriptions of who they were. I could say, oh yeah, my boyfriend so-and-so, also, I mean, it was something I didn't realize I had to do. And so once I did that, I realized there's probably more people who go through the same thing, right? And so how can I help them along that journey? How can I be somebody that they can look up to and say, this road is easier for me now because there's somebody like me who's made it through. So it was a process to get there. I'm still going through it, but it's definitely been a very rewarding journey. And being part of Open and doing this part with Owl the last 4 years is something that makes me come to work every day and wanted to be part of Alcon.
So I guess a question to all of you is, what steps can organizations and individuals, whether it's industry, whether it is clinicians, practices, or organizations like the AOA and OWL, what meaningful steps can we take to promote diversity, particularly in leadership positions? And any stories or personal experiences that you would like to share?
So I think definitely having events like this. So I will, partnering up with AOA, and I will support it. So we need everybody to come together. And I just want to say something because it's been bothering me since we started talking. And it's like, we're looking at diversity as a problem, and it is not a problem. Diversity should be celebrated. And if we all just help the person right behind us and open the door for the person coming in, we can make a small change, sustainable changes. And I think that beyond focusing on diversity, we need to really look at inclusion, right? So it's okay to open the door for people to come and join us and be here, but like Darryl said, if they don't look like us, if we don't appreciate, if we don't listen to them and are open to their ideas, then we're not really creating an inclusive environment. So I think going farther beyond, and it is diversity, inclusion, equity and inclusion, but inclusion is probably, in my opinion, the most important part. So we need to create an environment that is conducive to us not only hiring a technician, right, that is Spanish or Black or Asian, but developing those associates. So, even like I've been doing that since I was a Walmart Vision Center manager. I have easily 20 doctors
that are now ODs, they used to work with me as technicians, because I always believe that developing my employees, my staff, is one of the most important things and the best for whatever organization you're with.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to go back to something I mentioned earlier, Dr. Chandra Lippers. I think you got to hire folks that are well prepared for the position, but you also got to give them the power to do what they need to do. Can't handcuff them, can't baby them. You got to let them get out there, shake hands, kiss babies, and make the magic happen. But to take it a step further, we need folks like you in positions of power to mentor folks like me, the Chandra Lippers of the world, the Glendas of the world. We need to have those type of relationships. It doesn't have to just be internally to Alcon. It could be outside of Alcon. You got to make a change in regards to that, right? Because you've seen some things that I haven't seen. You've been privy to conversations that I haven't been privy to. But if we can sit down and have that conversation, work together, those diverse perspectives will take it to the next level for Eyecare. I think the other piece is also that we have to look at Eyecare as a whole. I've said this on numerous platforms, and Eyecare has a problem with branding. We are not known. So when you look at optometrists, you look at ophthalmologists, there's not enough. And to solve that problem, the superpower is diversity. Historically, we've always went into the same areas to pull students from. But areas we have not pulled students from? HBCUs, the Latino community. So we got to start thinking a little differently, pull people from those areas, and then provide those inclusive environments like Black Eyecare Perspective. I'm a co-founder of Black Eyecare Perspective, and it was created to foster lifelong relationships with African Americans in the eye care community and to build a pipeline for Black optometrists. So we have the only official pre-optometry club that's a virtual optometry club that ASCO recognizes. And every 13th of every month, we meet with students. We started off with a couple, now we have over 220 pre-optometry students. But they feel comfortable because they see themselves, they have conversations, and they're going through the same struggles and the same hustles. So you got to produce that inclusive environment, you got to lead with diversity, we got to have to keep mentorship, and we got to make sure that when we put these backgrounds and diverse backgrounds in positions of power, we don't hold them back. We let them fly high in the air in the sky, see brilliantly, and they
There is something really important there, I think, as well, which is, actually making sure that you get the right talent at the start. Because I think maybe the backlash that you talk about is where companies have over-indexed purely on the numbers, not the talent. And there's a huge war for talent out there, and actually nowhere is it tougher than in diverse populations. And some of that is because there just aren't enough yet. And we need to plan for that future, as Darryl says, and help that to evolve. As we look at eye care across the board, the number of ophthalmologists that there are more leaving than are coming in. The solution to that, I think we've just said, how do we attract more diverse populations, and yet the need is continuing to escalate every year with aging populations. And we're going to need more numbers. We need more efficiency as well, for sure.
For sure.
We're thinking about that, but there's a fundamental problem there, which diversity is a tremendous opportunity, as Glenda says. If we can begin to really attract the right people in to have that impact, create that situation where people see more people like them in the organisation as being successful. That's huge. You asked me what are some of the things we do. We have the benefit of scale at Alcon. We have 25,000 employees, and that means what I said earlier. You can measure that, and you can apply that and challenge your organisation to make sure that you're making progress. And I would argue our metrics, as I said earlier, could potentially get us to average, and then we need to go beyond that to be an inspiration to the eye care community, more so even than we are today. So, we keep pushing ourselves, and we can metric that in a big organisation, and that's really key to us being successful at the end of the day.
I think for me, we started open in 2018, and we weren't sure the response we would get. Our first meeting, we had 50 people, which was really awesome. In the 4 years or 5 years we've been around, we have almost 400 Alcon associates part of open around the world, and 70% of them are allies. So that just shows that for us to be able to come out and to be accepted and be who we are at work, we need the strength of the ally in the space, right? Our allies are in spaces where we can't be there or may not be there, and they can speak on our behalf. And so the work we do is to help other people understand what we go through, and that way they can bring that perspective to the table, and then hopefully open the door or break the door down and let us in. Yeah. Yeah. Put some steps.
So bringing awareness to celebrations like Pride Month matters to both
Of course, yeah.
of you.
I mean, Pride's for everybody, right? It's not just for the gay community. I mean, we have all the alphabets in the mafia, right? That we want to bring in.
What final thoughts do you want to leave the audience with tonight?
So let's create more opportunities and create those environments that allow more diverse people to join and develop them, take them all the way up, like you said, and let them fly, like Chandra has done with us. She was like, she's so sweet today. I actually said she's like my fairy god sister because she's too young to be my fairy godmother. But yeah, that's what it's all about. So let's not talk about it, but let's walk the walk, and let's each of us in this room, it's not just up to us, and the organizations, but if each one of us in this room walks back to your homes, it's not even just in the workplace, right? That also goes back to our friends and family, and we are teaching, right? I have 5 kids, so I have a responsibility to also embed these principles into my kids and make sure that they are going to be inclusive.
When we were chatting on the phone the other day, we talked about how early encounters in our careers and in our lives make us who we are and shape us as leaders. So if 1 or 2 examples come to mind, I'd love to hear those as we're closing. Somebody that's impacted.
I mean, experience is beyond work as well. I have 2 daughters, they're 19 and 18. My 19-year-old daughter is bisexual. She didn't come out early as she was exploring, probably 13 years earlier. And she suppressed that. She was bullied at school, and I didn't even know about it for about 2 years because she was not comfortable being who she was. And I don't think she was scared to tell me that she didn't feel comfortable. And from the moment that she's opened up to myself and my wife and the support we've been able to give her, it's been part of her flourishing. And if you can, the lesson in that to me is if you can let someone be who they are and value them for the wonderful person that they are, you see the richness that comes from that. You see the inspiration that they can give, that they can contribute to you. I learn from her, and I have a daughter every day, and I'm a 54-year-old white male, and I get the words wrong often. And they pick me up on it, and they help me to learn. And there's a language that's important, but there's a curiosity that's even more important. And I think when you experience that and you see someone flourish because they're able to be who they really are, that's very close to home for me, but I see it at work as well. If you're valuing people for who they are, what they are, and the value that they can bring, that's a more empowered environment, it's a more creative environment, it's actually a more fun environment. And we're here to enjoy ourselves while we're here as well, contribute a lot to society, and that gives the opportunity to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. That was brilliant. I mean, borrow an out word. That is really brilliant. Yeah, being LGBTQ plus is often not a choice, but being an ally is a choice. We have a choice to make.
Almost me. I'd say listen, right? I think everyone comes to the table with something different, different perspective, different experience. We can all say I have a gay friend and then just say, feel like you've been part of the ally box, but being an ally is an action. It's a verb, right? So you listen to the community, see what they have to say, and then work on that. Don't just have the name and move on. So, but from an experience perspective, I think what allowed me to be who I am at Alcon was a manager. He put me on a team. I was still figuring myself out at that point in time, but there were 2 other gay men on that team, and I don't think that ever happened at Alcon before. So to being on a team with 2 other out members, associates who were flourishing and successful, had senior titles. I was like, wait, I could do that, and no one cared, right? And then when I started coming out to colleagues, I didn't expect to have that sense of freedom where I could talk freely and not have to think about all these things before I spoke to them. And that just sort of grew as I went through my coming out journey, my Alcon. And now it's second nature. I don't think about how I present myself or who I am. It's just I bring my full authentic self to work, and that's a really freeing feeling.
Thank you. I am loving this conversation. I can talk to you all for hours, but I'm getting the... So I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but my gratitude to all of you. Thank you so much for your insightful experiences that you shared, for your wisdom, for being here, for supporting the conversation, and certainly thank you to all of you for being part of this and wanting to be educated and wanting to be good ambassadors, and really appreciate that. And I guess as we conclude, I'll just remind you that this is an ongoing journey, like everybody was saying, and let's continue to challenge our biases and break down barriers and just create that environment where every voice is heard and valued. So thank you again for spending part of your evening with us, and appreciate the support.